Hi, everyone. This is Nina Collins from Revel, the events and community platform for women over 40. We do this monthly series with Dr. Debbie Magids, our beloved therapist. Here's Debbie. Today's subject is how to find the right therapist, which I think is a great subject. I'm excited to talk about it. And the way we do this is it's a webinar and we have participants. We're super happy to have you guys here. This also gets blasted out as part of our podcast, Raging Gracefully. So members of the audience, if you want to ask a question, feel free to put it in the chat. If you're not shy, if you're comfortable having your voice recorded, raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, and then I can have you speak directly to Debbie or to me or whoever you want to ask your question. So welcome, Debbie, as always.
Thanks, Nina. So far, no one has spoken in these, so I would love someone to talk to us.
Right? Yeah, it's true. It'd be really fun if people started speaking up. So don't be shy.
If anyone who's been here before, come on in.
I like your haircut, by the way. You got your haircut. It looks super cute.
Thank you.
Shorter. Also, if you guys have ideas in the audience and just people who listen to the podcast in general of other subjects you'd like me and Debbie to cover going forward, please feel free to send me an email, nina@hellorevel.com. We're working on a list now for 2022 and we have a bunch of ideas, but of course it'd be most helpful to know what you want to talk about. So just let us know. All right. So hi, Debbie. So I guess I'm going to start by saying that when I started seeing Debbie, as people who've been here before know that Debbie was my therapist for almost 10 years. We're no longer in therapy together, but I hugely admire her. And when I started seeing Debbie, I was 37 and I was at the beginning of a really dreadful divorce. And I had had many years of on and off various therapists ever since my mom died when I was a teenager. And none of them had really helped me at all. And so I was really discouraged, but I was also super crazy. And I went to see a psychopharmacologist wanting more Prozac, which I had gone on and off of. And he was like, you need to be in therapy. And I was like, I know, but I can't find a therapist. And every time I go to someone, it doesn't really help. And I don't want to tell my whole story. I'm sure for anyone listening who's been in therapy, you know that feeling of like, oh, do I have to tell the whole thing all over again? And what if they don't get me? And this guy was like, yeah, I know, but you really need a therapist. And he said, go see this woman. And he gave me Debbie's card. And I went to see her. And it really did set me on this path. I mean, I'm sure there were many other things that, it set me on this path of healing. Like it was life-changing for me, the 10 years. I mean, it was probably 6 years of really regular therapy and then a few years of kind of in and out as needed, but truly life-changing for me. And I often wonder when I tell people, so I'm a big advocate of therapy as a result. And I always say to people, like, I don't know exactly if it was that it was Debbie was like the perfect person for me, or whether it was just a moment in my life where I had kind of hit rock bottom and I was really ready to do the work. I had probably seen 7 or 8 other therapists in my life until then, none of which I can barely even remember. I can't remember any of their names. Like they just did not leave an impression or help me. So Debbie, what do you think it was?
It was me, of course. What else could it be? It was absolutely because it was Debbie. No. So, I love this topic because I have gotten so many people over the years who have been in a lot of therapy and they haven't felt helped, and then they get helped in my office, right? And I've given a lot of thought to why. Like, why am I able to help? Or on the other side, why are there some people who can't stay with me at all? Like there's one session and they're out, right?
Really?
So, oh yeah. I mean, I have a much better hit rate than that. Most people want me, and I'm going to go into that. So so the first thing I want to talk about is, and we haven't really talked about sort of relationships and why we're drawn to who we're drawn to. And I hope we get to that in a future seminar, but it's not cookie cutter because we're not all the same. So a therapist that's going to be great for Nina is not necessarily going to be great for everyone. And it's because we each bring something to the interaction. And so it's always going to be, and if you ever look in a therapist's office, for those of you who've been there, like the therapist tends to draw to themselves partly who they are, right? Like there are certain fits of people that connect in. So the number one thing before anything else is, do you feel connected? Because if you don't feel connected, I don't care how brilliant a person is or how many accolades they have or how many degrees they have, it's never going to work, right? So
But what does connected mean? Like you like them?
You like them. You feel that you can trust them. You feel that you can open up to them. You feel safe with them. That's what I feel by connected in this area. And I'll tell you a quick story. I have one client a very wealthy client, and I'm telling you that for a reason, comes from a background whereby you had to go to the best of the best. It had to be the head of a department. It's all Harvard, Yale educated people that look at degrees and look at what program you're running. And he got to me through his assistant who had gotten to me. And he had been to every single renowned person. And he felt horrible in their presence. And he stuck with me because he felt good about who he was in my presence. He didn't feel judged. He felt safe. He felt like he could really open up, right? So that's really important. And, and as we're talking, since you are someone, Nina, who came here and then it worked, you should, because I was going to ask you, like, why did it work for you, right? Like what happened for you? And, as I go through these things, you can start to think if that was true for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I remember you were in that office on like 12th and Broadway.
Yes.
And I was really like, I was probably like just about to separate, and I was having an affair. It was a horrible, horrible time. I had 4 young children. I was hysterically kind of sad and angry. And I can't say that I remember going into that first meeting thinking, oh, I have to tell my story, but I did like you. I immediately liked you. But I honestly, I can't say because I like a lot of people. I mean, I have a really easy time talking to lots of people. I'm pretty sure I liked the other therapists that I went to, but I didn't feel, I do think there was some component of surrender to a certain extent. Like I felt like I was in such a bad place that I was like, but
that would just help me.
But also you opened up. I mean, it's true. I would say over the next couple of years, I mean, you allowed me to do things that not like I would text you in a crisis. I mean, not that I think your boundaries are excellent. I didn't feel like it was like we became friends, but you really allowed me. I felt very safe with you, and I needed someone to feel really safe with. And I think you saw that in me. I'm sure not all of your, like I was in a pretty bad shape. And so I felt very heard. Okay. And kind of safe. And like you also always kind of told me when I was really out of control, which was good. Like I used to say sometimes when I was in therapy, like some therapists won't ever tell you what to do, but you would sometimes tell me what to do, which I really wanted, because one of my issues was I didn't have a mother. And even though I don't think I ever saw you as a mother figure, you did become like that. Like you and my housekeeper, Ruby, or I always felt like were the 2 people who kind of took care of me. I really didn't feel like I had anyone else caring for me. And so being able to go to someone, I mean, I still miss that, but not nearly like I used to. I used to all the time feel this craving to like pick up the phone and call my mother to ask her for advice. And I couldn't. So having you to say, am I doing this wrong? What should I do instead was really, really, really helpful. So yes, I guess to that point, you were really giving me what I needed. And that's safe.
Why it's not cookie cutter. So this wasn't the order I was going to go in, but I'm going to have conversations. So I'm going to go off of what Nina said. So let's talk boundaries, right? So and again, each one of you listening, when you're really looking for the right fit, you have to see what fits for you. So I am someone who collapses the boundaries. I don't keep a strict boundary like other therapists. Okay. I have a boundary because I came from a very boundary background. So I'm not afraid to collapse boundaries when appropriate, because I'm not worried about the boundaries falling apart on me. There are some therapists that come from different backgrounds and they keep very strict boundaries. Now, there are some clients who need really strict boundaries, especially people who came from very chaotic backgrounds. So someone like me would feel too much for them at times. But I will tell you, I assess each person. I only collapse boundaries with people who need me to collapse boundaries in the service of their growth. So I will share, because Nina doesn't care, when she was going through her divorce, Nina needed me a lot at the beginning. There was a period of time during therapy where she needed to talk to me every day. We didn't have sessions every day, but I would be on the phone with her almost every day for a period of time. And I do that with people. I give them my text. We text all the time if that's what they need. And no one has ever abused it. It's respectful. But when she was going through her divorce, I gave her a divorce attorney and I met her there. I left the office and we met there.
Yeah.
I had never done that before, but I felt like this was needed. And if you're taught that in school, you're told, don't do that.
You never do that. But interestingly, also, Debbie wouldn't do things like when I started What Would Virginia Woolf Do? I was like, you have to join to see what I'm doing. And she was like, oh no, for her, that was a boundary. Like she doesn't tell me about her personal life. So I felt like it was a fully professional relationship. It was fully boundaried, but
this is the thing. If anyone is with a therapist who is breaking boundaries, it's very specific. I broke boundaries in the service of my clients. I didn't break boundaries in the service of me, right? There are some people who talk about therapists who talk about themselves all the time. I might tell a story once in a while for like a minute, but it's because I think it's going to enhance the work. You have to make sure that, like, I didn't cross a boundary and ask Nina to come with me to somewhere. Like it was, right? It's in the service of helping the client where I have collapsed boundaries. The other thing that Nina mentioned, and I want you to think about, like, I'm super direct and I give advice and I push my agenda. You're not taught to do that in PhD school, because I feel like I have worked so hard at this that people are paying me to give them insights and awarenesses that they never had before. Now that works for 90% of the people that come to me. That really worked for Nina. There have been some people who, because I say a lot in the first session, and I give you insights on the first session. And I can feel where I'm too much for people. And I have said to people, I had one actress who came, and I could tell she was really visibly uncomfortable in my office. And I'm super kind, but I'm direct. And I said, is this too much for you? And she said, I think it is. I'm not the right therapist for you. And I have colleagues in my repertoire that are as effective, but very different, right? Because we're not the right fit. I have sent many people to my colleague, I say my colleague Jeff, because he's completely opposite than me, and he works with people that I can't work with. And so it's knowing yourself, it's knowing your client. And for the clients who are listening, the people out here who are looking for therapists, you have to know yourself and honor yourself. Like, you have to know if you're feeling comfortable in the style of the therapist, right? I just recently was with someone for one session, very bad eating disorder. Image is very important, on a camera person, has suffered depression her whole life. And I'm very upfront at the beginning. I said, look, we're going to have to dig around your past. We're going to have to dig around your family. I'm a believer that everything starts in the past, and we have to look in the rear view mirror in order to understand what's affecting you present day that's stuck in your subconscious. And she said, okay. And then she wrote me, she goes, I've thought about it and I can't do the work you want me to do. I said, well, then I'm not the right therapist for you. Right. So the therapist needs to know their parameters of what they're capable of. And so does the client who's looking for
you have to ideally, we didn't do this at the time, and I don't know that I think people often don't, but ideally you have a really frank conversation in the first session about what you think you can do and what this person, because therapists often don't tell you all that much in the first session. They kind of say, why are you here? And they kind of listen. And it can be hard to assess whether it's the right person for you, because you often don't get that much from them. Someone in the audience has just asked, do you do phone or Zoom appointments? She definitely does. I'm in California, and is there a discount for Revel members? And then she says, my therapist that I've seen for a few years recently said I'm not the right therapist for me. He thinks I would benefit more from CBT than psychoanalysis. So I want to answer your questions, but it is something I want to go to, this whole question of like the different kinds of therapy.
So I do Zoom. I don't do in California because I was doing Zoom all over the place until I took a CE credit seminar that it's illegal. From a licensure perspective, I'm actually not allowed to treat anyone who's not in New York. So I had to let go of a few clients. So yeah,
I've learned that.
There's the answer to that. So that was, again, I have a bunch of things I want to say. I was feeding off of Nina, so I started there, but there's also then what type of therapy are you looking for, right? So most of us that are good at what we do, you don't just stick with one genre, right? There are people who are psychoanalytic. You're on the couch 5 times a week. And then there's CBT, which is strictly cognitive behavioral. So if you're someone who's trying to change certain habits in your life and you're not interested in really exploring anything from your past, and you just want to understand what you're thinking, how you're behaving, and shifting it, that's the model that people go to, right? I personally don't understand that model fully. I use that model, but I find that if we don't explore the past, and we don't understand what's in your subconscious, I go backwards to build a roadmap. And then for change, you do have to change your behavior for new outcome. But I don't understand the roadmap until I understand what happened to you in the past. But, for more serious things, like there's some anger management things or some more serious conditions or some personality disorders that only respond to CBT and DBT. The average neurotic person, we call it, and just so people understand, there's neurotic, which is all of us, and then there's psychotic, which is mentally ill, and then there's people who have personality disorders, which is a whole other category that doesn't respond well to talk therapy. So
but that's really interesting. I never knew that distinction. So neurotic
is psychotic, and then there's personality disorder. So like, for instance, when people think of narcissism, they think of narcissistic personality disorder, someone to the nth degree who's unchangeable, where all of us neurotics are narcissists. We all, meaning we all are in our own orbits of how does this affect me? What did I do? Right? Like it's just on a continuum. So I don't deal with personality disorders or psychotic. I deal with neurotic. I deal with people like me and Nina and probably most of you that are listening that are just trying to be human beings with a ton of issues, right?
Right.
And I do that because to me, that's the person who can change the most, right? And so for anyone who's sort of forward thinking, forward moving, wants to change, you want to be with a therapist who's forward thinking, forward moving, and wants to help you change. And so
that all makes a lot of sense to me. I just want to go back to CBT for a sec. So cognitive behavioral therapy versus DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. I don't really understand the difference.
I don't know a lot about DBT at all, because that is really used in hospital settings a lot for people that have borderline personality or very more serious conditions. So I know it exists. I know what it's for. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
My world has been here.
Right. And would you just describe the way you do therapy as a particular method or school of thought, or it's probably like most therapists, it's kind of a mashup of a lot of stuff?
It's definitely psychodynamic in theory, in terms of I believe everything starts in childhood. Okay. I definitely believe that feelings are stuffed in, and the unconscious is in charge of everything that we do. I'm a big believer in, unless you become self-aware of that, you can never really change. And then I believe in pushing you into behavioral change for new outcomes in your life.
Okay. So CBT is kind of a part of it, obviously, with the past, because I always wonder why kids in school, elementary school kids aren't taught CBT. It seems like there are very basic things about like controlling thoughts and managing emotions, not internalizing stress, like basic tools that would be good for everyone to learn.
100%. But they're not enough if you're really dealing with, people that show up in therapy later in life is because they've recognized there's something that's been with them forever. They've been depressed since they were young. Their relationships keep going faulty. They can't seem to earn money, right? Like, so those are blocks that CBT, I don't believe, will help without understanding where the blocks come from and knowing where we really need to shift behavior. And it's not cookie cutter. It's very specific to each human. There's cookie cutter theories, but you have to apply them very differently. And I just want to get out one more thing before we go off on another tangent. If I'm someone who's going to therapy, I'm going to want to know if my therapist has been in their own therapy. I will tell you, big pet peeve of mine, if you don't go to your own therapy and go to the depths of yourself and really know what that's like, you can only help someone so far. I will promise you, the reason why I believe I've been successful in this career is because I didn't open my doors till I had 10 years of it. And I continued for 16, right? Because I said I was going to go to therapy until I didn't learn anything new about myself, because this was my life's work. And I learned something new until year 14. That's how hidden we are from ourselves. I stayed for 2 years. I didn't learn anything new. And I was like, I can go now. And I've gone back when more things have opened up or someone's passed away, or, you go through things. But, I think it's very, very important that, people look for what degree do you have, or, where did you go to school versus have you done your own work? Mm-hmm. You learn the most doing your own work. Like I would trust Nina being a therapist more than I would trust someone with a degree who maybe did 6-month stint and thinks they know everything.
That's so interesting. It's interesting for me thinking about my children. My oldest is becoming a therapist, and she's been in therapy, but probably not a lot because it's so expensive, and I should really be helping her to do more of it. She's just finishing her counseling degree. That's a really good point. All right, we have so many questions in the chat, and one more from me, and then I'm going to go to the chat, which is, what do you think about EMDR, and can you briefly explain what it is?
I don't, you're asking me questions that I'm not going to have a lot of answers to. Because,
okay.
I mean, to be honest, like I know very little about EMDR. I don't do it, but I know it has to do with trauma being stuck in the body.
Yeah.
And the release of it. I think it probably works. There's more than one way in. Yeah. And that's the other thing I want to say. And that's why people have to say, like, I started to read about EMDR and take a course in EMDR, and I got bored. Yeah. So it's not.
I saw an EMDR therapist very briefly during my last big breakup, and it was really kooky, I thought, but some people really love it. Like it was kind of like close your eyes, inner child, somatic. Like I don't know.
And it's just not, it doesn't resonate with me. So I stopped even caring what it was about. But that doesn't mean it's not right for someone who's listening. I'm just not that therapist, right? I've been doing this for over 20 years. This is my genre, right?
No, that's great. That's really helpful. I just want people to kind of understand the various. So to our listeners, we'll do a session on EMDR. We actually have a good piece of content on our site by an EMDR therapist in our community. So again, there are lots of people who love it, and there's something for everyone. But let's get back to this. So is bipolar a personality disorder or psychotic?
Neither, actually. Bipolar disorder I guess it's actually considered a mental illness, but it's not psychotic. And it's, bipolar disorder. Now, listen, again, I'm giving my definition of it.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you.
The medical model will say that it's, there's definitely something awry in the system, and medication really helps it. And I believe that. I believe that medication is key for bipolar disorder, and you can get it under wraps. But then I would also believe in going into therapy to understand sort of root cause of what sort of fueled the, depression, which I consider a symptom of pain and anger that's stuffed inside. Right. And, and whoever doesn't understand bipolar, it's manic depression, like the highs are to really defend against the pain of the lows. And sometimes I think it's actually what I've discovered, sometimes it's a healthy response to people who go through very difficult young lives. But there is a genetic component, right? So I'm not ruling out the biological piece, but there is a way with meds and with therapy that can really be managed. I've seen a lot of success with that.
Hold on, my thing needs to be charged. All right, so let's go back to a question from the audience, which is, what is the best way to just find a good therapist? It's really hard. We get women who post in our community all the time saying, I'm looking for a therapist.
I always liken finding a therapist to dating, because it is hard. And, you can go blindly or you can get recommendations. I would always start with recommendations of people who saw someone and they really liked them. But you have to be your own advocate. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of the session. Like, Nina loved me, but someone in the audience can come to me and be like, not for me, She might be brilliant, but I don't like her personality, or I don't like her directness, or I don't like how much she pushes, or I don't like how much she talks, or, so, and that's again, like dating, like you could say someone could fix you up and like, I have the greatest guy, the greatest guy, and then not for you.
Right. So I think one of the problems that people come up against, which is real, right, is that say you decide to find a therapist and you're like, okay, I'm going to get 5 recommendations and I'm going to go see 5 different people. It's going to cost me $200 each time, at least. They're not going to take insurance. I'm going to have to tell my story 5 times and I'm in pain and that's just going to suck. And so then you kind of don't really want to do it, or you go with the first person and then so I think one of the lessons here is that it is kind of work. You have to really be a little bit devoted to finding someone who's really going to work for you and go through the difficulty of that process.
Yeah. And again, like I know some people who went to a therapist and just stuck because they part of their issues were not having a voice, saying, this isn't working for me. Right. So here's the best thing I can tell you. When you're seeing a therapist, they're working for you. I mean, it's an odd profession, right? Because you want to stay connected. You want to stay close, right? Like I love Nina. I loved her the whole time, right? We fell in love. If you don't end up loving your client, you can't really be effective. But I still got paid, right? I loved her, but I got paid and I'm working for you, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to go in there and be like you would hire anybody else. Like you're hiring someone, even though you're in emotional pain, and like they need to meet some of your needs. And if they can't, so you want to look for someone. So when you're assessing them, now I hear you, you may not try 5 at a time. Maybe you go to 1 at a time and give it a few chances and see how it goes. But you want someone who you can tell them what you need and see if they can meet your needs. You want someone who, when you're in therapy, you want to leave there not just feeling good, because if you just feel good, you're not learning anything. You want to be learning something every time you go there.
Mm-hmm. I remember feeling that way with you. And I remember saying that to people, that it was extremely rare that I would have a session with you and not walk away having
a new thought.
Yeah.
A new thought, a new perception, something to think about. So you want someone who knows themselves. And I would ask if people gone to therapy, because you need to know yourself enough to know, like if someone walks into my office, I need to know my triggers. So I know that whatever's happening in that interaction, it's not my crap, because things happen in that room. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times over the years I've had to call someone after the session and be like, I'm really sorry. I hurt you and I didn't mean to. Here was my part. Right.
I think I remember once or twice you telling me that you got triggered in something. That's super interesting. Yeah.
Yes, because it's very validating, because you're in therapy trying to figure yourself out, trying to figure out relationships. And you need to understand like where's your participation and where's the other person's participation in your life. Like the first thing I say to people is, well, let's look at what your part of the 50% of the interaction. But I'm 50% of the interaction happening with clients. So
yes.
So that's why it's so important for the shrink to know who they are, because, and quite honestly, listen, this is as I got seasoned. When people walk into my office and I'm too triggered right away, I know it will never work, because I have certain things that it won't work. Right.
Wait, what kind of patients trigger you? I need to know.
We've talked about this a little bit, but can
you give me any hints?
Not right now, because I'm going to go off. I don't want to go off tangent of just about me. I'm using me as an example, but I'm trying to sort of spread it out a little.
Yeah.
But you just have to really be with a therapist who knows themselves. So, because we have a lot of power in the room, and you can always feel like you've done something wrong, versus we're in a partnership here, and like I can mess up too. Mm-hmm. So these are things you want to look for: someone who you're learning from, someone you can talk to, someone you're not afraid to confront, someone you're not afraid to, say, maybe this wasn't all me, maybe it was you, or a therapist who can own her part or his part. And that's part of the relationship, the connection, the comfortability.
I remember a couple of times coming in and saying to you, like, I was mad at you last week, or I didn't feel like that was fair, or something. Yeah. Being able to say things like that really, really matters. So it doesn't sound like you think that the credentials, whether someone is a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a counselor, a life coach. I'm curious what you think about life coaches. How important, a licensed social worker, how important are those distinctions?
So they can be very important, and they can be not important at all, right?
Yeah.
So as a theme, psychiatry are med students who do one rotation in psychiatry. Okay.
In psychology. No, psychiatry.
Psychiatry. So they go to medical school and they have one rotation in psychiatry.
Ah, wow. Okay? I didn't know that. Really? That's crazy.
And now there are also psychiatrists who then go on for further analytic training or institute training. So it becomes very, some people think, oh, psychiatry, that's the, the MD. They can prescribe you meds, but I've personally only met one so far psychiatrist who knew themselves. The rest hide behind their degree and they don't go to therapy and they don't know themselves at all. So again, have you been to therapy and how long and what did you learn from it is super important. I don't love coaching for in-depth work. I think coaching has a place in the world. I think coaching can help motivate you and help you set goals and help you meet goals. So it depends on what you're looking for. So I'm just going to the two extremes. Psychiatry, medicine, unless they've really done their work. Coaching for meeting goals and motivating and, having someone there to rah-rah you.
Yep. But generally not for deeper work.
But to deeper work, I think you need a psychologist or a social worker. And again, their own therapy. Like Jeff, who I send a lot of people to, he's a clinical social worker. He's not a psychologist, but he has done so much work on himself and he's good at his craft. And then
I have to tell the joke that Jeff is this friend of Debbie's, this male therapist that she refers to people. And Jeff has seen not one, not two,
but three.
But three, at least three, if not four of my former boyfriends, which is really hilarious. And then he saw me in couples therapy. I felt bad for the poor guy. He was like, oh, this is the woman that has tormented all these men. Anyway, that was just funny.
You can attest that Jeff is very different than me, but he's effective.
Yeah, he's great. I really liked him. What do you think about a therapist treating children, a therapist who doesn't have children of her own, treating families and people with children in parental situations? Is there a rule of thumb about that or not really?
No, because it's really the depth of insight and awareness and clarity that you have as a therapist that can help. Like I see lots of different people that are nothing like me, right? But my job isn't to have the same life as somebody. The therapist's job is to be able to help you give clarity to your life, right? And giving clarity to your life is the same process. It's all a self-awareness process. It's all about you learning your themes, you learning what is sabotaging you, what's in your way. So it doesn't matter. Otherwise, I would only be able to see, white Jewish women.
Right. No, that makes total sense.
That are 56, right? Right.
Yeah. And what do you say to people who can't afford therapy or who are on like an HMO with really crappy benefits? How do you help yourself? This is a really hard issue and a very real one.
It is a hard issue and a real one. So first of all, helping yourself, at this stage, there's a plethora of information out there and every good therapist is putting videos out and information out and all of that. And so I would start. And even when I was in my own therapy, learning to be a therapist, you do it, all my clients do it, even though I'm working with them, I'm saying, read this book, listen to this podcast, right? So you're always doing that adjunct work. The other thing I want to say is there are therapists on plans that can be fantastic because we don't all start, out of network charging a lot of money. And I'm going to say I was really good at the beginning too. Maybe I'm better now, right? You get years of experience. But when I was starting out at 30 years old, I was a good therapist and I was charging like nothing.
Yeah.
So you can find a really good therapist.
I think that's true. I have to say one of my daughters is now using Tia. The website is www. I'll put it in the chat, asktia.com. And it's a women's health website. And they initially started really gearing their marketing was to young women, but they're now branching out. And in fact, we have a meeting with them for Revel because I think they're going to start doing menopause like everyone else. But my daughter Ruby is in therapist with them and it's costing me $20 a session, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, really amazing. And there's people who are charging $400, $500. And like I was telling you earlier, the heads of, hospital units and they kind of suck.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's a little like wine. You can spend a lot of money and have it not be
well,
very
that's why I said it's like dating. You have to really go see what the right fit is for you and maybe go through some duds before you find a good one. You know, like Nina said, she went through 8 different therapists until she found the one that helped her. I'm not saying I'm the only gig in town, but I was the gig that was right for you.
Yeah. So you have to keep trying. And you shouldn't, I mean, ideally you should not let cost. I mean, I know a lot of people think, oh, I can't afford it, but I think if you really need the help, you can find it.
Yes.
There are people out there and a lot of social workers. I mean, they come out of the gate, they charge very, very little. Yes. I have a really dear friend who I think is going to be an amazing therapist who's just now working at a public clinic. No money. She just graduated from NYU. She's in her 40s. She's really, really smart. So I think it's true. It's not easy. Finding a good therapist is not easy, but I've been surprised, like with my daughter who's using Tia, she went to Tia because I was paying her therapist from when she was younger, like, I don't know, $350 a session. And I didn't really see any results. And she's an adult. And I was like, you know what, find your own therapist. And she did. And it's actually been really good. She's getting really good help. She loves this person she's seeing. So
that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's really been nice, actually. And sometimes actually that brings up another point, is that sometimes it's good to switch things up. I mean, in my case, I really felt like being with Debbie over a long period of time really helped. But I've seen situations like this one with my daughter where then moving from one person to another after a few years might be good.
I've actually done that. I've actually taken some clients and it's always Jeff. I said, I felt like I've gone as we weren't getting anywhere. We like got somewhere and then we were sort of coasting. I was like, why don't you try somebody new? Because I feel like given who I am, I've taken you as far as I can take you. Somebody new might take you somewhere else. And I passed them along. Because I know, and I tend to tell people when it's time to leave and take a break, when we've come to an impasse where like, you're just wasting money now, come back to me when something new happens, or maybe try something other than me. So yeah.
Debbie told me that it was time to move on. It took me like, I was super sad. I was like, I don't want to go anywhere, but eventually I did. And it was really.
By the way, everybody does. At first, like, no, I'll just stay. And they're like, maybe.
Well, actually, now that therapy's on Zoom, it's different. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, now I have an extra 3 hours every week and I don't have to trek to therapy. It was awesome. All right. Well, this is really good. We've covered a lot of ground. So I'm thinking we still this week did not get people to raise their hand and speak up. So maybe starting in the new year, we'll do something slightly different. Maybe we'll get guests or something. Is psychologytoday.com a good place to find a therapist? Yes, it is. I know lots of people who have found good therapists through that website. And one of our guests also says, thanks, I'll look some more. The Wright Institute and CIIS have trainees that are less expensive. I don't know who those are, but yes, I think looking into trainees, like I know like my eldest daughter is now seeing people who are, she's working at Phoenix House and she's had some really moving experiences already. I mean, she's just graduating, but she really has felt with some patients like she's making a huge difference. And so
I'll tell you, here's the good thing with trainees or new people freshly out of whatever school they're in. They're not jaded at all. They're on top of the newest research. They're the most excited. So you could really get someone really good. I mean, obviously with time and people get more seasoned and some people don't. It's really a hit.
Right. It's actually also a little like doctors. I had this weird skin thing and I went to like 8 of the best dermatologists in New York and no one could diagnose it. And then I went to this young dermatologist. He was just out of school and he knew what it was because he had just read about it in some book.
Yes, that's exactly right. Now with therapy, it's a little different because we're more sort of connection based and, you just want to be with someone who could take you where you need to go and not be afraid. Like today I had a session where a client I've known forever, she got so angry with me and she was crying and yelling at me because she felt so misunderstood because I didn't agree with something she said, right? You can't be afraid. Like Nina brought that up earlier. Like I used to tell her things that she didn't want to hear because I saw it differently. And it's part of our job. We're all filtering in information from N of 1. We had one experience young and we have those prisms and everything that comes into our being is filtered in through our one experience. And it's up to therapy to clear that up because it's fuzzy. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's true. You feel it because of what happened to you young. It may not be what's happening present day.
Absolutely.
And when people are stuck in those moments, they don't see clearly.
They can't see it. No, exactly. I remember a lot of moments like that with you. That's very, very true.
Yeah. And
two last questions. Is it okay to see a therapist who's married if you're single? I think we already answered that, where Debbie said, obviously, a good therapist can.
You don't have to be the same people. You have to have the right connect, and you have to have a therapist who can help you get where you want to go. Doesn't mean, like, we all have different lives. We've all made different choices. So you don't have to have the same life. You just have to be able to use the shrink as a vehicle to get where you need to go.
Yeah, exactly. Someone is asking, again, if you don't have a suggestion from friends where to go, and I would suggest try the Psychology Today website. It's a good one. I would also suggest using communities like Revel. You can post in Revel, in the All Revelers group, and ask people for recommendations. We have tons of people in the community, obviously, are in therapy, and you can ask in communities like that.
You can also call insurance companies to get a list of the people that are on your insurance plan.
Yep. That's a good idea. Last question, in terms of weight loss, are there specific therapists to help, or would you suggest a regular therapist? That's complicated, like, because there are some coaches that might be the right person who could help you with weight loss. But also, I mean, Debbie's going to answer it. It also could be a deeper issue.
Yeah, it could be both, right? Like, if it's weight loss and you just need sort of like tools and motivation and someone to be accountable for, that's one thing. If you've always had issues with weight, if it's more of an eating issue, just some weight loss, if it's body image stuff, if you're really suffering depression from it, it depends again on what level you are of who you need.
I would say to the weight loss, like, for example, in the Revel community, we have a Monday weight watching, we call it, group. I think it's Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And the woman who runs it is a coach, and she's terrific.
Yes.
But it's for guidance and it's for support and accountability. She's not doing therapy. Yes. So it depends on what you need.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was amazing, Debbie. As always, you're super fabulous. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think we have a December one scheduled. I think we're moving to January, but I actually don't remember right now. So,
I also just want to say, because Nina started at the beginning by saying, sort of, you become like a parent to the person. And, Nina, to this day, and you want to have this kind of connection with your therapist, she'll just text me out of the blue, like, I just wanted you to know this, right? I just need someone to know this. She'll send me things because she still wants me to be proud of what she does. And I am, and I want to know everything, right? Because there was a very good connection that formed, even though Nina had a lot to work on in terms of parental connection. So that's how important it is that you really bond to your shrink, right? Amongst everything else, without that bond, they can be as brilliant as the night, and you're not going to get where you need to go. So.
It's so completely true. You saying that actually made me start to cry a little, because it really is true. It's true for me. You are, I go to my boyfriend, look, my nose is red. You're one of the people I go if I really have a question, or, still, I think of you as kind of a guiding star.
We're bonded for life. I mean, that's what it is, but I feel the bond as well. And it's morphed. Obviously it's morphed, but
actually one of the sweetest things Debbie said when she was trying to get me to stop therapy is she said, I have to tell you that you really don't need to be here anymore. And that if I keep having you come, it's just selfish. Like, I'm doing it for me, and you don't need to be here anymore. And she was like, because I feel connected too. It was really very, very moving. Heather in the audience, thank you very much, just told me that we are scheduled for December 15th, and we're talking about
what I thought.
Romantic relationships.
You told me we're done. I just emailed you before this. I'm like, I thought we had one in December.
Sorry, no, we are. Sorry, we have so many events, like, it's hard for me to keep track, but I'm very glad. Yeah, the idea is the third Wednesday of every month is Dr. Debbie. And we're going to continue into January. We're coming up with the new season. So do send us ideas if you have ideas.